So you've got to make sure that you don't take it too high, because trust me, I've done that too. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new, then welcome to my channel, which is all about honest and transparent beauty. Today is the Beauty 101 on brows and eyes, and I'm really excited about this video because I have the most stunning palette that I'm going to be using. Can't wait for you guys to see the finished look. Don't forget that I do have a few previous Beauty 101 videos on skincare, concealer and contouring, and foundation, so you might want to go check those out too. Now, before we head into the video, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you never miss any of my future videos. You can also catch me on Instagram, where you can watch my stories for beauty reviews, PR unboxing, and just generally what I get up to when I'm not on YouTube. So let's jump straight into the video. So my skincare is done, my concealer is done, contouring is done, foundation is done, it's been set, and you can watch all of those tutorials in the links in my description box, because this is a whole series on Makeup 101s. Now let's get started with this one. You guys have sent in some questions, so let's kick off with the first question. It's really down to personal preference. If you feel that you have naturally good shaped brows, then that's great. Maybe all you need to do is tidy them up, and maybe you don't even need to do that, which is great for you. But if you have sparse and thin brows like me, then you want to obviously create that arch, create that nice shape, which is what I'm going to show you shortly. But it really is down to whether you feel that you need it. Although my personal preference or opinion is that I do feel that it frames the face, and you've probably heard that saying quite a lot. It genuinely does. Your brows genuinely do frame your face, and just kind of like, if you have great brows, I feel like it just makes everything else so much easier. Obviously I don't have great brows, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I can make them look great, you know. So that's what I want to show you shortly. So once that's done, then I feel like, you know, I'm ready for my eye makeup. I can just move on, and then it gives me a good idea of how I want my eye makeup to be. If you have quite sparse brows but you feel that the shape is already quite good, then maybe you just need to shade them in. So you really want to see, do you need to shape and shade them, or do you just need to shape them, which is just on the perimeter of the brow, or maybe just the underside will be enough for you because maybe you like that whole fluffy look and you've got enough hair to be able to do that, or maybe you need to just shade in the areas which are a little bit sparse. I need to do both, so that's what I'll show you shortly. So you have quite a few different finishes of brow products. You've got the pomade, which is like a cream texture, and that's like, for example, the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow. That's like a creamy texture. That's great if, for example, you don't have a lot of hair. I used to use that quite a lot. I had someone send in a question actually saying that they suffer from alopecia, and that what should they do about that, what products are best for their brows. So in answer to that, if you have anything like that where you don't have hair on your brows, then you can use a dip brow or a cream texture, which will make it so much easier for you to get that nice depth in your brow, because ultimately if you don't have hair there, you need to create depth. It does give a lot more of a stronger finish to your brows, but again, if you don't have any hair there, then that's kind of what you want, because you don't have anything to work with in the first place. Now, if you are using a pencil, you will get a lot more of a softer finish. And now that my nano blading has started to fade, I do feel like I need to maybe start using my dip brow again, because there are certain areas which are quite large in terms of like chunky areas which don't have much hair. So overall, a pencil will give you a much softer finish, and it probably is actually not probably, I don't know why it probably is definitely. It definitely is a lot quicker than using a dip brow. So that's the plus point of using a pencil. It's much quicker, it's just easier, and you don't have to use a brush with it. You can just use the actual pencil, whereas with a dip brow, with a cream texture, you've got to use a flat angled brush to apply the product with. Then you've got a powder brow palette. So that's where you can use a powder on the brows. That isn't enough for me because I feel like it's just not going to give me that pigment that I need in the areas that I don't have hair, but that will give you a much softer finish. So I don't know if you've ever seen any of the videos where I've worked on my mum, so for mature makeup, but that basically I use a powder on her brows, because even though she has quite thin brows, it's soft enough for her, because with her face type, her features, it's just not going to look right with very dark brows. And that, so the powder is great for people who don't want your brows to, if you don't want your brows to look harsh or strong and you just want them to look very kind of natural, then use a brow powder. But just bear in mind that if you have kind of a large space that you're working on and you have sparse brows and you want to make them look much thicker and fill in any gaps where there's no hair, then I wouldn't suggest a powder, because it will color the area. But the problem is if you compare that area where there's no hair and you've just applied powder to the area that you actually do have hair, you'll see there's a massive difference. And if anything, I feel like you can then really see the difference more. So you might as well have just not put anything on. So yeah, that's what I think. So that's my opinion on different textures of brow products. Okay, so this really depends on your face shape. There are so many different face shapes that we can go through, but I'm just going to give you a brief understanding as to how brows can really frame your face, and how certain brow shapes can help to lift your face or help with certain features. So for example, if you have quite downturned eyes, you want to make sure that you definitely do not have kind of downturned brows, and you want to make sure that they're slightly lifted at the end, because if you can't create that lift with your eye, which you can do with makeup. So for example, if you watched my concealer video, which again you'll find the link in the description, you'll see that there is a way that you can give your eye a more lifted finish, which is great for downturned eyes. So check that out, because that will show you how you can get that lift on the end of your eye, and it gives the illusion of more lifted eyes. So if you want that lift, you can get that with the wing of your brow by lifting it slightly, but equally you don't want those kind of like Star Trek eyebrows. Is it Star Trek, or what's the other one? What's the one that's similar to Star Trek? There's another one that's similar to Star Trek. Star Wars. No, it's not Star Wars, it's Star Trek. Star Trek. But yeah, you don't want Star Trek eyebrows. So you've got to make sure that you don't take it too high, because trust me, I've done that too. And there are other things that you can do. So for example, if you have not a lot of space around this area, I have quite a lot of space here, so sometimes I actually fill this area in a bit more, as opposed to I don't actually add much at the top of my brow, because otherwise they're way too high. So I actually apply more of the product on the bottom part of the brow, just to kind of bring them down a bit, because there's a lot of space there. But if you don't have a lot of space there, then you can actually add the product at the top of the brow and lift it on the arch area, which should always be a quarter of the way in from the end of your brow. It shouldn't be right in the middle, it should be around this area here, and you can lift that to create more space. So if you want to create more space on your eye area, add the product to the top of the brow as opposed to at the bottom of the brow. If you apply it at the bottom of the brow, you're basically decreasing that space there. So apply it at the top. Okay, I'm going to show you. So I'm going to use my Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz in chocolate, and I'm just going to start shaping my brow, and you'll see that as I'm shaping it, how I create that arch. So I'm going to do this brow first. So I'm just looking straight ahead, and I'm going to start with just doing feather strokes. And can you see how I mentioned to you earlier, I'm actually working on the bottom part of the brow first. And also I always make sure that my eye is fully relaxed, like as in I'm not like this, because the minute you go like that, then everything drops. So you've got to make sure that, you know, you're not lifting it too much, because it's not going to give you a true indication of how it's going to look. So I'm doing it on the underside. So now I know that that's where I want my arch, right? So I'm not going to apply too much product there. Now what I'm going to do is start on the top part and feather strokes, and I'm taking it up a bit on this arch bit. Can you see the direction is going upwards? Okay, so now we're going to get to the wing. This is where I lift it at the end a little bit. Okay, so you can see we've got that lift there, right? I didn't actually apply any product there underneath, I only applied it at the top. I applied it at the bottom here, and because I applied it at the bottom here and I didn't apply it at the bottom here, this is naturally going to give that lift. And I applied it at the top here, which equally, in turn, helps give that lift. Okay, so now we're working on the wing, and I'm just shading that in small strokes. Okay, so I think I can still get away with just my Brow Wiz pencil at the moment without having to go into my dip brow. There you go. So you can see how we applied product underneath here, so we lowered this part a little bit. Then we applied it at the top here, so we increased the height of the arch there because there was nothing applied on the bottom part. And then we went straight into the wing, and then we balanced it out so that we applied, you know, just so that the width is the same all the way across. We applied some more at the top here. I kept it pretty light with my strokes, and we've made sure that it's kind of one width, and then it goes slightly thinner as it goes past the arch. So you can see this arch here helps to lift that area. Just going to go ahead and do the other side. I always like to look back and forth, you know, to make sure that I'm getting everything symmetrical. Okay, how many of you have bought a palette and then you only end up actually using a couple of shades in it? It's so annoying because I feel like sometimes you get a palette and you're like, oh my god, I love that color, and you just keep using it and then you're not using any of the other colors. And if that's you, trust me, you're not the only one, that's me too. I do think that it is really a case of trying to shop around and look for a palette that actually kind of like has colors in there that you feel that you are really genuinely going to use, because a lot of us tend to buy palettes where we're like, oh my god, wow, it's like something super shiny and new and you're like, oh my god, that looks so good, but you don't think about, okay, is it going to look good on me? Am I realistically going to use those colors? So really have a think about which colors that you think are within your kind of preferred spectrum, and you know that you're going to use those colors. Like for example, I think Mario does a palette which is like great if you use a lot of earthy tones. So that's a palette which you could really use if those are the kind of colors you usually stick to. At least you know that you're going to utilize most of those products. If you really, it's a case of what you like. If you like wearing a lot of pinks on your eyes, there's so many pink eyeshadow palettes out there that you can go for. I do really like the Huda palette. I think it's the nude palette, which personally I think is more pink. That's a great palette if you really love kind of like different tones of pink. And if you like to kind of get more iridescent colors, then you can go for one of the Pat McGrath palettes. Those are great too, which is what I'm going to be using today. So it really depends on what your preference is, not only in terms of color but also in terms of the finish, the texture of the eyeshadow. Do you prefer eyeshadows which are completely matte and give you amazing pigment straight off and you don't have to actually wet the brush? Or do you have more time? Do you like spending a bit more time on your eyeshadow application? Therefore, you can go for something a little bit more technical where you can use, wet the brush a little bit to get more pigment and keep building up and use more iridescent metallic shades. Or do you want to just keep it simple? So don't only think about the colors, but think about the texture of the eyeshadow too. So, powder eyeshadows are obviously powder, and you have different types of pigment that you get. Some don't have much fallout, which is great. Fallout basically means when you apply it and you have the eyeshadow, a lot of it drops down onto the lower part of the face. And some don't have much fallout, which is great. So you'll realize over time that certain brands have different types of kind of fallout. There's some eyeshadow palettes which don't have much fallout, which is great. Some of them do have a lot, in which case I usually do my eyeshadow first and then I finish my base after. Whereas if I'm using something like a Pat McGrath palette, which is what I'm using today, that doesn't have any fallout, so I'm fine with doing it on my eyes after I've done my whole base and everything. Powder eyeshadows are great whether you want a matte finish or whether you want a metallic finish, because you can get every type of finish with a powder eyeshadow. I know that a lot of people tend to think powder eyeshadow is easier to apply than cream eyeshadow, although that's what I've heard recently on comments, that people have been a bit scared of applying cream eyeshadow. Cream eyeshadow is a cream texture. I actually find it's easier to apply, and I always recommend that to clients who are not used to makeup and are kind of wanting to get back into makeup, or actually for the first time get into makeup and want to kind of experiment with different products. I personally prefer cream eyeshadows for beginners because it's so much easier for you to use. You can apply it with your finger and blend it with your finger, so it's much easier to apply. It doesn't mean that every cream eyeshadow is the same and is as easy as the other cream eyeshadow, because you'll get some cream eyeshadows which are cream and you apply it and it just never seems to dry up, and then you'll end up with creasing on the lid, whereas you'll get some cream eyeshadows which dry up after they've been blended in and you don't get creasing. My absolute best quality cream eyeshadow that I've ever used, although it's pricey, it is amazing, is the Tom Ford cream eyeshadows. It actually comes with you get it just as a cream eyeshadow, but you also can get it as a cream with a powder topper on top. And the other cream eyeshadow which works really well, which I wish they just had more variety of shades, is the Charlotte Tilbury cream eyeshadows. They're really good too, and they dry well, so they don't actually give you any creasing. So I would say that the main difference between a powder and cream eyeshadow is that a cream eyeshadow is much easier to apply and it's a different texture. So it is going to be much easier for you to apply with your finger as long as you don't have long nails. Otherwise you can apply it with a brush. And I feel like with a powder eyeshadow, you obviously use a brush and you can use your finger sometimes to swipe across. But ultimately the blending is done with a brush. Whereas with a cream eyeshadow, it's kind of it's cream finish, so you can glide it over the lid and you can also blend it with your fingers. It isn't really a case of you should use a powder eyeshadow here and you should use a cream eyeshadow here. It really just depends on like when what type of ease of application you want, honestly. So a cream eyeshadow, what I would say is cream eyeshadows are absolutely great, perfect for mature skin. So much easier for you to apply. You don't need to faff around with powder eyeshadows. And plus, when you have wrinkled skin or you have lack of elasticity on your eyelid, a cream eyeshadow is great because you can stretch the skin and you can really get it in there. As long as it's one of those cream eyeshadows that does dry up after you've blended it in, you can blend it with your finger and you're done. You don't, you know, powder eyeshadows can end up looking a bit too powdery on dry skin. So I would say that you can use any type of texture on kind of normal skin or which isn't mature yet, like as in lack of elasticity. And for mature skin, which is quite wrinkled or there's a lot of lack of elasticity, then I would always suggest using a cream eyeshadow. So I'm going to show you based on the palette that I'm going to be using. I am using the Pat McGrath Mothership Divine Rose eyeshadow palette. I have been so excited about using this. I haven't used it yet, and honestly, I don't even throw away the packaging for Pat McGrath eyeshadows. I keep it and I put it back in its little box, tie it up and put it away. So yeah, I absolutely love Pat McGrath eyeshadows. They are so nice. They look amazing. I'm really excited about this one. This is going to be a kind of pinky goldy look, and I want to really show you how you can kind of layer eyeshadows and blend them in together. It's really a case of showing you how to apply eyeshadow and how to blend them together. Okay, so I'm going to use my Wind Oasis veil and spray this very lightly over my eyelids from afar, and this is a spray that I can keep using, so that's why I love applying this when I'm applying certain eyeshadows where I feel like I'm going to need that extra pigment, because it really does help. Now I'm going to apply the shade Refined Gold, and I'm going to apply this just into this inner corner here. This is the MAC 219 brush. I'm going to take this into the lower lash line as well. Oh my god, I love this gold. I just love gold eyeshadow, gold and bronze. Can you see how I've taken it on the inner corner, but I've taken it onto the lower lash line there? I'm using the shade Rose Dusk, and I'm using my Fenty 230 brush. And I'm going to apply this just into my socket line, but I'm looking straight ahead to make sure that I'm getting just a little bit above where that line is. So I know it needs to be roughly around here. There. And I don't want to take this all the way in or all the way out. I actually just want to create some depth there. Now I've got quite a bit of space up there, so I can kind of like utilize that area to add some depth so that it doesn't look like there's this just huge space above my actual crease. So you can see we've created some depth there. So just so you know, I used the tip of that brush, not the flat part, and that really helped to kind of get into that area. Now I'm going into Iridescent Pink, and I'm actually using my finger, and I'm going to just apply this over my whole lid. I'm going to do the same on this side. And I'm not really focused on blending it at the moment. I just want to get that nice, really pale pink on my lid. I'm going to go into Extreme Mahogany with my MAC 219 brush. I'm taking off the excess on a tissue, by the way, because I don't want it to go in too strong. And I'm basically going to apply it just in this area here, in a really small kind of section. And the same thing here. So you can see I've actually applied it onto the lid. I'm not going onto the crease area, and it's this tiny little triangle bit here. Okay, so you can see where I've applied that. I'm going to clean the brush off on a tissue. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the edges so that it looks like it's just kind of blending in. I think one of a really important tip I can give you with eyeshadow application is don't go in, like don't think that you have, don't think blending is like moving your brush around everywhere. It's really not. It's really a case of application, and then your blending can be very kind of subtle if you do it strategically. So for example, I applied it in this area, and because I want the edges to look like they're fading into that other color I've got on my lid, all I really need to do is drag the product so it looks like the edge is actually just blending into the other color. See, that looks so much more blended. We're gonna do the same on this side. I'm going to go back into that mahogany shade, but I'm using my Sigma E06 brush, and I'm using the tip of the brush, and I'm going to create this kind of like, almost like this really nice line, but I need to make sure that it's created in a way where it just is slightly kind of lifted, so it's not going down or straight. So I'm just applying it at the end of the lash line. It's actually a little bit of a gap before the end of the lash line. Can you see that little flick that I've done there? That gives me a good marker point so that I know I want to stay above that. And if I do go below that, it's fine, but it gives me a good idea of the area that I'm applying it to and where I want to kind of stay within. I'm going to use the Sigma L04 brush, and I've applied it into that mahogany shade. It's very, very small, this brush, so it gives me precise, like precision in my application. So what I'm doing now is just applying it above that line and keeping my movements really small. I want to create like this slight wing, but without it looking like it's overtaking the whole look. And I want a really nice feline finish. So I almost want to create like a liner finish to my lid, like, but it's so that it's going upwards. So you can see I'm really small movements, and I've kind of like kept it very small initially, and then I've made it bigger where I feel like I can make it bigger. So I can take this out a little bit more because I kept it quite short, you know, just in case I didn't want to take it out too far. Now that I'm looking at it, I feel like I can, but I don't like this dip that we've got going on here, so I just want to fill that in a bit. I'm going to go in with my MAC 219 brush. There's nothing on the brush. I've taken all the excess product off. And this is where I'm going to drag this colour into the middle eyeshadow so that I can make this look really nice and faded. I'm going to use the shade Rose Dusk, and I'm using my Fenty 220 brush, and I'm basically going to just buff this into my lower lashes. I'm just going side to side. Now I'm using Astral Solstice, and I'm going to apply this with my finger. This is like super glittery, so I only want this just kind of like, I'm going to layer it on top so it's like it doesn't diminish the colour that you have underneath. So it kind of like sits on top and gives you this really nice sparkle. I absolutely love this. Okay, so for this, I'm going to make sure that I use a liquid eyeliner because I personally think it's a lot easier to apply. You can use a gel eyeliner, which works great on top of eyeshadows because it has that really full pigment. It probably is a little bit harder with a liquid eyeliner, but I'd rather show you that way. So you can't just use any liquid liner on top of eyeshadow. You've got to make sure that it's something that has a lot of pigment that comes through. So usually I use the Huda Beauty Life Liner, the pen, and I feel like it's too thin for me to be able to get that full pigment there. So I'm going to use the Dual Show On Stage eyeliner. It's a slightly thicker tip, and I know that a lot of product comes out, or a decent amount, so it's good enough to be able to get that pigment onto my lash line. Now what I usually do, what I would suggest for you to do, it doesn't mean I actually usually do it, but what I would suggest you to do is get a Q-tip. If you feel like when you apply eyeliner, what happens is it just looks like it's not even transferring. It's usually because there's too much eyeshadow kind of sitting right on your kind of lash line. So I usually just go over with a Q-tip. That's if I've got a lot of eyeshadow on, and just really close to my lashes, and I just lift off any excess product. And then I'm going to go in with my eyeliner brush. Now I don't want it all the way across really thick. I really want more of a kind of feline eye. So I'm only going to apply it along the ends here and then go super thin on the inner corners. So okay, I need to look straight in the mirror, and I'm going to keep my brush flat like this. And I'm going to make sure I go really close. I'm going to get my tip right here, like my flick right, sorry, not my tip. I usually get the shape right first and then I fill it in. So now I can just start filling it in. happy with that flick, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my actual lash line. I'm going to go super thin. I'm going to show you both, so I'm going to apply my mascara first. I'm using the Fetish Eyes mascara from Pat McGrath, and I'm just going to put this through my lashes. And mascara is great to kind of like obviously define your lashes and just make them look thicker and longer depending on the type of mascara that you use. This is generally a really good mascara, but I do want to show you the difference that applying a pair of lashes can make to your overall look. It doesn't mean that lashes, like false lashes, suit every type of eye look. Personally, I feel like for this type of look it's going to look better, but some of you might think that just mascara looks better for this type of look. So I'm just taking this through my lashes. Okay, so I've applied some glue onto my lash. I'm using my own lashes in Nina, and so many of you guys have been asking about these lashes. It makes me so happy, but it also makes me so sad because it's only available in the UAE and the UK. Guys, I really want to launch them in the US, but we just need to have consistent demand, and then we can, you know, hopefully launch somewhere in the US. But make sure you do go in and ask wherever your local makeup store is, whether it's Ulta, Sephora, you know, let them know that you want to see these lashes there, because then we'll be one step closer to possibly getting our lashes over to you. I'm going to go ahead and apply this. So I'm just going to sit these on top of my lash line and just make sure that I tuck in the outer and inner corner. Okay, how much of a difference is that compared to that side? This is what I wanted to show you. This is the difference between having just mascara on and then applying a pair of lashes. Now I'm going to go in with that same mascara and just apply it on my lower lashes. I only apply it to the tips really, I don't kind of brush it through the entire lash. I think we can just finish off this look with some lipstick. Obviously I still need to kind of like bronze, blush and everything, but that's going to be on the next video. But I just want to add some lipstick to this look. I mean, I love this eye makeup. I think this palette is amazing, and I hope that you've kind of like seen how you can layer eyeshadow together so that you can utilize more colors as opposed to just 1 or 2 shades, and it still looks kind of like really nice, and how to apply eyeliner on top of eyeshadow as well. I'm going to use the Pat McGrath lipstick in 1995. I'm just going to, this is a matte lipstick. I don't know if that came out right. I love this look, so hopefully you've learned loads about brows and eyeshadow in this video. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Any questions, let me know in the comments box below. And don't forget that all the products are listed in my description box below. As always, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you never miss any of my future videos. Until the next video, take care, and I'll see you soon.